Welcome to the Rocket Roof Show, where we equip fellow roofers to do more commercial business every first and third Thursday of the month. It's time to launch your business to the next level.
This is Project Command. Stand by at power transfer.
3, 2, 1, blast off!
Welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Roof Show with your host, Andy Neer here, where we continue to educate and equip roofing contractors for the commercial roofing market. And I'm super excited today to have a guest on that I've been pursuing probably for about 6 or 7 months. And our schedule work out, and since she's so busy, but we finally were able to make the dots connect. And I want to welcome to the show, Kimba Garcia. Welcome.
Hi, Andy. I'm so excited to be here finally. This is so
Awesome.
great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you hail from the big state of Texas, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
DFW.
Okay. I lived in Houston for a short stint, just enough to know that I'm a small town boy and I'm made to live in a small town.
Houston is big. Houston is very city. I don't blame you. Fort Worth, little different vibe. That's where I live. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's start from the beginning and just give me a little bit of background story, because I know you have a phenomenal story about really coming from right down from the, had 2 jobs, were scraping by. I mean, you weren't poor, but you just were struggling to make ends meet, and decided one day to start a roofing company. So tell me about that.
Literally. Well, I was a hairstylist for 10 years, and I met my husband, Robbie, in 2016. At the time, he was in the construction space, more in outdoor advertising. He worked on billboards. He hung big ads on the side of skyscrapers, like those big iPhone ads you see on the side of skyscrapers. So Robbie's actually rope and harness certified. So he would rappel off the buildings and do the things. And I was a hairstylist when we met. Now, Robbie's career at the time, he had been there for a decade as well. So we were both in 10-year careers that we were very comfortable in. I made about $70,000 a year. He made about $150 when we met. The problem with that is that he was always on the road. It required a ton of traveling. So he always makes the joke. He said, I knew if I didn't get off the road, this girl was going to leave me. And, people that have done long distance relationships do know how challenging that can be. So we kind of decided to cut back on our lifestyle, depend solely on my income at the time as a hairstylist. And because he moved into my house, I was a single mom with 2 boys. And so I was used to paying the bills, that kind of thing. He moved into my house, and we decided to push into a different kind of construction talent that Robbie had, which was really building and renovations. I, at the time, don't even think I knew how much talent and even experience that he had, because that's not what he had been doing when we met. So once I started seeing some of Robbie, at the time it started very small. I used my hair network in a small town. Hey, we're doing some construction jobs now. My husband's coming in off the road, and he's just basically looking for some things to do. And we felt like we would be able to accomplish our goal of keeping our family under the same roof. And getting the bills paid, which was really our priority at the time. No more, no less, right? Pay the bills and be together. And we thought we would be able to do that. And so that's really how RKG started. About a year into that, I quickly realized that I was either going to learn business or this business was going to run me over. Yep. I had been doing some of the marketing, social media stuff. I'm big on, when you sell things, you can say it's a people business. It's a relationship thing. Sales skills that are important is communication and the ability to listen, which I crushed in being a hairstylist. It was one of those things where I had to listen very detailed. I was people's counselor all the time. So the human element of sales and marketing that's my jam. That's what I do. So I just started utilizing those same core principles of sales and marketing into construction space. And I started lining them up some jobs to go knock out and keeping some money in. Now, our first year in business, we did $1 million in revenue. And doing my taxes the first year was horrifying because I didn't keep good books, and I had no idea. $1 million came in and went out, and I had no idea where, to be honest with you. I'm sure most small business owners can probably sympathize with how that fit. You're like, what? And so that's about the time that I realized that I really needed to get in front of the business. And the following February, I came on board RKG full time and walked away from my career as a hairstylist to really be able to not only do the sales and marketing full time, but also to start team building, recruiting, helping get people trained up, launched up, and then to start building in the systems and processes that would take it from just kind of being Robbie's talent to a whole functioning business machine, which is what we had to create so that we could run the business and the business didn't run us.
Yeah. So, so self-development, personal development was pretty key for you early on.
You know, it was so huge. And just to keep the lights on and the groceries in the fridge, having 3 small children, you know, I had to do hair 10 to 12 hours a day. I mean, I was slinging hair color all day long. But Robbie was actually working longer hours because we couldn't at the time always afford labor. I mean, there just was not a labor budget. So he was out in the field actually doing and building the jobs. And I was back home doing hair. So the hours that were the difference between how long I worked until Robbie, because I just couldn't sleep till he got home. And he was working 18, 20, sometimes even 22-hour days, coming home, taking a nap and doing it again. During that time is whenever I pushed into reading. I didn't know a lot about podcasts yet. I mean, this is 6 years ago. I think podcasts have really came up a lot over the last 6 years and got more normalized. I didn't know a lot about them, but I did know about Amazon Audible, and I jumped on there and I started learning. Honestly, I kind of dove into real estate first, which kind of helped me bridge into construction. When RKG started, we worked with a lot of real estate investors. So understanding that space was important to me at the time. And then from there, I really pushed into business development, honestly, Andy, I didn't get too far into personal development until I realized what leadership really required. And I started to understand that if I do not grow as a person, then my company will outgrow me, or I will prevent my company from being able to grow. You know, even today in the workplace, fast forwarding 5 or 6 years, being what I call the decentralized leadership and being a leader of leaders in a culture, it takes being a strong person personally and within yourself, and having a lot of interpersonal trust when you're navigating through being responsible for so many other people. So personal development definitely played in once I started team building. Before that, I was really focused on learning business at the level, because roofing company owners out there, this is a high liability business. This is a high risk business. And the rewards can be great, but the risks come with it. And it's very important, you know, that you start to understand early on those things like key paperwork and documents, you know, key photos and stuff like that. So I started there. It was once I started acquiring a team that I really started realizing that I had to grow to be able to lead others. And then I had to push into personal development, or I wouldn't have been able to, you know, I wouldn't be able to lead people. If I can't lead myself, I can't lead others. So I had to push into that a little bit later.
And you did utilize a coach for a while, right?
I've had a few coaches, and I love having coaches. I've actually I have wonderful things to say about every coach that I've ever worked with, because I've gotten something uniquely different from every experience. I am big on, I change up who my coaches are. And I guess, is it okay if I name drop a few people?
Yeah, no problem.
Sure. So I worked with John Paramore over at Smash.
I've worked with him also.
I've done a lot of work with Mike Claudio. For example, I actually have Mike Claudio's book right here. But you know, when you work with these guys, they're really good on the no excuses, you know, and so to really get that push into personal development, accountability, boundaries, as well as systems and processes, those people were really what I needed at the time. I really needed to have that high level of execution. And I've been to 2 Smash events where I promise you, one time I'm out in the rain, one time I'm out in the snow, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's freezing outside, and we worked out till Robbie physically threw up at these workouts. But the things that you learn about yourself in that space are super powerful. You learn if you're going to quit. You know, you learn if you're going to whine. You start to really learn what we all call the little bitch voice in the back of our heads that says, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then whenever you get to the hard things in business, you hear that same person or voice show back up. That's not really you. And you're able to identify, this is not me talking to me. I'm shutting the whiny bitch down today. We're not doing that, folks. And at that season in my journey, I needed that, because as a business owner, it's easy to get on a pity party sometimes because we do juggle so much. Well, I'm only human. What doesn't matter? You're an entrepreneur and you're a leader. So guess what? No time for tears. Get after it, right? And so I've had coaches in my life that did that. I also, the coach I'm working with right now is actually an attorney. And, I've got a lot of value from him in other ways about, interpersonal communication. And then my last coach was actually one of the most hippiest, he lives at the beach, just all about getting right with your mind, your spirit, your center, harnessing your internal power, being able to utilize that in the business. So I've had so many different styles of coaches pour into me over the last 5 years, both hired, some friends of mine, some mentors of mine. And I'm just really thankful for what all of those people have added to where I've gotten now. I think it's very important to have a mentor, a leader, a coach, somebody that you call a coach, whether you're paying them or not.
Yeah.
It is really important to growth.
I hear people say all the time, well, don't hire a coach if they haven't been where you're at or they haven't done. I even hear some coaches say that, but I see a lot of professional sports teams, or they have coaches that they might not ever went past college, but yet they're coaching a big team. I love the Rocky movies, and you see Mick coaching Rocky, and Mick's like 80 years old. I don't think he ever boxed in his life, but what he did was he kept Rocky accountable. He pushed Rocky. Exactly. He didn't let Rocky have any excuses. Rocky's like, oh, I'm going to quit. He's like, no, you're going to get your butt back in the ring and you're going to go another round. Yes. And it's like, sometimes that coach is just there to hold your feet to the fire. Yeah. It's not like, well, you didn't do it, so I don't have to do it. It's like, no, I hired this coach because he's going to push me. Sometimes he's going to ask me questions I'm not comfortable with. He's going to remind me of the commitment that I made a month ago. And so I think some people have some misperceptions about coach, about, what credentials they're supposed to have and all this stuff. So I like that comment that you had about, just mixing it up, because, maybe they're not roofing pros and built a $50 million roofing business, but they help you, center in on yourself and other stuff. So going back to the beginning, when you're deciding whether to start a company or not, what were you thinking? Was it money? Was it freedom? Was it I'm up for a challenge? Was it just an opportunity?
Andy, I was not up for the challenge. I did not know that it was going to be this hard. And if you could have told me 6 years ago that I would have a day like I even had today, I probably wouldn't have even believed you. I did not know how hot the fire was going to be in, but once you're already on fire, what are you going to do? Survive. That's just all you can do, right? So initially it was freedom. It was bringing my husband off the road. It was having my family. I'm a blended family. When I got married, Robbie had a daughter and I had 2 sons. Robbie and I both come from blended families. Both of us were single parents, obviously, before we met. There was a natural want for a family unit that was together and stable, that lived in both of our spirits, that we could not get away from. It was just one of those very strict, we will live on ramen noodles, whatever it is. We will live out of beans in a can if we have to. We are not going to continue to have 8 months of the year where our because we had a family. It was like we blended so beautifully, where my sons had a sister and she had brothers, and it was hurtful to everybody to have that level of separation that often. And that's what it was about. It wasn't about, I did not know that we were going to scale this company then. It's one of those things where your company starts growing and you realize with your personal development that we either grow, we either get better, we get worse every day, but it's impossible to just maintain, right? I mean, the universe is a forever moving thing. We can't just sit here where we are right now. You have a choice. You either have to go forwards or you have to go backwards, but the pendulum is swinging every day. We can't just hold right here. And that's why we scaled it, is because we came to the realization of we are going to grow this thing because otherwise it falls apart. It just seems to really only be the way to go. And it later became about other people's families. And once we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish internally in our own unit, it became about giving that freedom and teaching other people why we love roofing and restoration so much today. But I didn't know. I just did not know 5 years ago. I didn't have this plan yet, to be honest with you. I didn't know enough to even be scared. All I knew is that I wanted the family that I finally had, and I didn't really care what that took to create. And I still don't, it's still difficult, but now I get to give that to other people, like people that join my team now. They leave the oil field, they leave long-term careers, they find that freedom in roofing sales where they're able to still pay their bills and have time freedom. And now it's really about helping that live on and showing people what we've learned in the space.
Yeah, awesome. So that kind of takes me to one of my other questions here is early on, the first year or two, you worked your face off. You're talking about, many hours a day, but you're also talking about family time. So when did you decide to start carving out time for personal, even though you're like, hey, I could chase that next storm. Hey, I could add some more stuff. I could take on more customers. I could spend more time in the office. I could, revamp my marketing and my website. But when did you decide, you know what? I got to start carving out time for our family and myself.
I think that's always came pretty fluid for me, just because we are a blended family. So we split custody with the kids every other week. So my weeks that I have the kids were really the time that I put into the kids. Of course, they're all school age. So I have 8 good hours a day where they're at school. I have a couple hours sometimes where they're at practice, and I would just bring things along to practice with me. There were times my kids would be running around playing and I would be, busting things out from home. The weeks, even now, we ran into the hurricane. We did that on a week when we didn't have the kids. So it's one of those, for us, I don't think we would have been able to scale RKG if we weren't the blended family and had that split custody like that, because I do have off time from my kids every other week. Outside of that, I'm awake early before the world starts anyway. I typically get up, between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm out there doing my yoga. I love yoga because it can be my workout and my meditation in one activity, and I can bust it out in about 30 minutes. And that really has gotten me a long way in my personal development. As far as reading goes, we can all make the excuse that we don't have time to sit down and read. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book either, but back to Audible. That drive time, I make sense of that windshield time and I'm listening to books. And I'm just one of those people, I'm a quick learner. So if I hear it, I can retain it. I'll go in and execute on it the next day. And now it's locked into, to what we have going on. So I've
always struggled with reading. I've always struggled with reading. I don't necessarily hate it, but I've always struggled with, like, I read through a line and I don't retain it. So I got to go back, and then I read down the line and read down the line. And I got to go back. And so I struggle. So when I listen to a lot of Audible, because like you said, you can do it on the road, but I like to get up at 5:30 in the morning, sit in the hot tub and listen to 45 minutes of Jim Rohn or Grant Cardone on Audible. And that's kind of like my self time when I'm, getting ready for the day. So, but everybody's got that thing that they do as long as you're developing and you're, growing. So, talk to me about your natural talent that helped you initially, because I know you mentioned on one of your posts the other day how when you were younger, you already realized you were a fast reader and quick comprehension. And so obviously that was one of your strong suits when building your business. So talk to me about how that helped you a lot.
Yeah. So, and I had about a 9th grade reading level in the 1st grade. I've always liked to read, even growing up. I mean, I say this with all love, but I was one of the nerds. I like to be alone with my book in the corner. That's just where I was happy. So such a blessing though, growing up. Right now, it's like, I just like to read and I like to learn, and I do retain it very quickly. Whether I read it or I hear it, it usually stays with me pretty well. As long as it's something that I find relevant that I want and need to learn right now, I'll usually keep it. But, those late hours of, the time between spent doing hair and finally getting to go to sleep was definitely me digging into books. I also highlight through books when I take notes. I think writing it down really helps your attention as well. But luckily I'm thankful that I don't need to go back and read the same line multiple times. In fact, I can just kind of, some people call it skimming, some people call it speed reading, but I can even retain something if I kind of, like go down it pretty fast. So I was able to knock out a lot of books in a short amount of time. And I still do. Like, I'm usually listening to a couple audibles, and, I have a couple books that I'm flipping through and highlighting stuff on. So, luckily I've just always loved to read. And the thing is, if you can read and you can read fast and you can remember it, you can learn a lot in a short amount of time. And you can learn a lot from other people who've taken the time to write these books and put this information out there. I just can't even imagine how many learning curves that I have probably skipped, how many punches to the face that I've avoided because I just read a book. It seems like the most simple thing, but it's powerful.
So what do you say to the people that we're in the roofing industry? What do you say to people in the roofing industry that are like, books, that's for losers. That's a waste of time. Reading is stupid. I have some guys that commented I know some of them are joking, but they're half serious. Like, they never read a book. And so what do you say to people like that don't?
The same thing that I would say to people that tell me that they don't have time to work out or they don't have time to push into any kind of personal development. You don't have time not to, and the truth is that a lot of people stay kind of like stuck in that hamster wheel of I don't have time, or that's silly, or that's for losers, or whatever. But there's a lot of information out there, and there's probably an answer to a lot of the things that they're struggling with. There's probably a resource for that out there. And, I think roofing contractors by nature kind of want to, well, I'm the kind of guy that just learns everything the hard way. And when it got, and that's fine, but you're only going to be able to grow so far, so fast with your own experience. But if you can prioritize viewing reading as learning from other people's experience and being able to skip those learning curves, I think that people might realize that they have more time. They have a lot of time. You have a lot of time to save. You have a lot of time to not waste. So that's the time that you invest in advance. When you invest in reading in advance, you don't have to be costed so much time on the mistakes. Yeah. So you're going to spend the time either way. It's just, do you want to spend it in advance learning how to jump over the hurdles, or retroactively having to clean it up, unscramble the egg? Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. To be honest with you, Robbie's not a huge reader. So I guess to those guys who just refuse to read, like, get somebody on your team that will learn and execute then, because somebody needs the information.
I've always looked at it like, you take guys like John Maxwell or Craig Groeschel or Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, and you're like, I'll never be able to sit down and have lunch with them for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just probably never going to happen. So the next closest thing is I could buy their book.
Yeah.
And because in their book, that's not just general conversation. What they're going to put in their book is actually the most critical, pared down, to the point information that they're going to give. So, like, why wouldn't you? I mean, if I read a book, probably get more information than if I sat down for 2 hours at lunch with John Maxwell, because a book I can reread and revisit and highlight and mark it up, but also, like, it's not going to be filled with fluff and rabbit trails like a normal conversation would. So that's really why I think books are actually even better than meeting somebody in person. Maybe not inspirational-wise, but information-wise.
No, yeah, you're very right. And that's one of the things, even in, I haven't got a chance to start Mike's book yet, but even in flipping through some of it, I can tell. And when he came and talked to my team last week, you're exactly right. He's like, I put the most tactical things in here. There's, after all the conversations that I've had with Mike, they're probably going to still learn a lot reading the book. So, yeah. I mean, I absolutely love that, because they're going to put the most tactical advice and probably the most important, even, and you buy a book for $15, you pay for coaching for a couple grand, you know, or more. So, it just depends how you want to receive the information, I guess.
Did you know Andy Neer has been using Top Roof Marketing for the commercial roofing division of his business for more than 3 years? If you're not happy with the results you're getting, or haven't looked into all the ways out there to grow your commercial business, take a look at toproofmarketing.com. They can show you solid data to back up the proven strategies they use to get their clients more commercial business year after year.
So here's a question. This one might put you a little bit in a little bit of tension. I don't know, but
Yeah.
What things did you suck at when you were starting your business?
Definitely tracking things, which you might see me talk a lot about now in my business content that I put out on Facebook and stuff. I'm big on tracking everything. And that comes from a pain point from me, from numbers to leads to, I mean, everything. But now in my office, every single thing gets tracked. I was also terrible with books, which is kind of also tracking, really being able to be able to use numbers to tell me a story to make database decisions with. I couldn't do that. I had to really force myself into that space, which is what my coach Nick actually helped me with. And him and I worked together for over a year, building out RKG's internal tracking systems and deciding every time I would come to him and say, hey, I don't know what's going on here. He's like, well, let's build a tracking sheet. Let's track it. And it was just amazing to me, the story and the patterns that I was able to start seeing once I stopped being afraid of numbers or having that mindset where I'm like, I just don't like, because a lot of times as business owners, what we don't like to do is what we don't do. So that's what goes undone. And for us, that was tracking. Now I'm able to track every lead that comes in. I'm able to see how many of them close. I'm able to see where they come from, where my marketing budget is best spent. I'm able to look at, cash flow in a whole new way and be able to manage that and keep my company cash flow happy, like not get into major cash flow crunches, because I can build out patterns of expectations on, how the money's flowing in and out of the company. I used to not be able to see it like that. So I would definitely say when it comes to just tracking, keeping books, the financial side, the number side of it all, I'm a people person. I don't really like having to dig. I used to say that. I'm a people person. I don't like the numbers. Now I really like the numbers because I understand that the numbers protect the people and that it's a key element of the business.
Yeah. So that leads me to another question. And that is like, as you were growing, you must have had times where you felt, man, I'm not adequate. I'm ill-equipped. I'm supposed to be at this level and I don't know how to get there and I don't know if I'll get there. But then you're like, I got to do it. Like, were there parts where you were thinking, I'm just not sufficient enough to do what RKG needs me to do?
Oh yeah. Very, very, very many thoughts like that. And, I guess one of my favorite quotes on there is I had to learn how self-talk so powerful, because the truth is you're adequate or you're inadequate. It's whichever one you choose. Yeah. And pushing into personal development helped me understand that, being able to tap into what I call my interpersonal power and understanding that I'm adequate if I choose to be. And what that means is I'm willing to learn what I don't know. And, that's really what it boils down to. There's plenty of things that I don't know, but I'm never gonna shy away from learning those things. And I started realizing that is what made me adequate, was the fact that I'm not afraid to get messy. I'm not afraid to jump in. I'm not afraid to learn new things. I'm never going to be done learning. I'm never going to be done growing. Therefore, I'm never going to be adequate today to the next level at which I'm getting at, right? There's going to have to be growth to get there. So am I adequate today for where I'm going to be in 6 months? No, I'm going to have to grow to get there. And now I embrace that as part of the journey. We're not ever adequate this week to get to where we're going next year, but we can just push into that. So I started asking myself, instead of getting stuck in that space of, who am I to own a company like this? Who am I to be successful in this space? Who am I to break generational curses and teach my kids a new way? Who the hell would I be to even do that? And I could pick apart, Andy, I was a teenage single mom. I don't have a college education. Like, there could just be so many things that I could sit here and tell myself I'm not adequate. But instead of asking myself now, who am I to do any of those things? I just flip it back around to the simple truth of, honestly, who are you not to? Yeah. I mean, somebody's going to grow a roofing company. Here you are, you're in the seat. Learn what you need to know, do what you need to do, and go crush it. You have to just choose that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So with your time being, as you grow, as you grow the owner, you're always like the hub. Everything's got to pass through you, and eventually you got to decide, okay, this task isn't worth me investing my time in that particular thing anymore, whether it's ordering materials or, doing a safety inspection or picking up returns or whatever. Like, eventually you got to be like, okay, that doesn't fit my role anymore. I got to delegate that out. So with your time being stretched all the time, what things do you use to decide that you got to let go, or Kimba still has to continue to do that thing?
Yeah, that's definitely been a stair stepper over the growth, especially over the last 2 years. We've really rebuilt our infrastructure. I've brought in a general manager. I have a sales manager. I have a full-time sales trainer. I have a receptionist up front. I have a production manager in the office, production manager in the field, a renovations project manager. So now there is a head for every hat. And that's really the thing as the owner is once you start getting to that point where you're juggling so much, like you can't be the single point of failure. Well, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done, just doesn't work at a certain level anymore. There's too much going on. So I started I started off by just writing down everything that needed to get done and then delegating those out into different positions, creating positions in the company I have a list. I'm big on lists. I have a list of every single thing that needs to get done at this company, break that down into departments, down into jobs. And then I went through and dissected what personalities would best fit this role. Who you have running, or the person that answers the phone, the receptionist that welcomes people when they walk into your office is probably not the same dude that's ordering your materials. Like their personalities are probably not the same people. So breaking down the jobs that need to get done so you're not the single point of failure, identifying what those different job roles are going to look like, assessing what your employee avatar looks like, that would be the ideal person to fulfill those things, hiring, making sure you have a good job flow work process that you can use to train off of and make sure that you teach them everything that they need to do. I just started kind of breaking it down one thing at a time. And as we got busier, my production manager used to also do some of our accounts receivables. Like he's sitting at the computer at the office all day. Well, we got busy to the point where that just became 2 jobs. So now I have somebody that does payroll, that's a different person that orders the materials, and just started kind of breaking it up into what makes sense. But now I'm definitely very thankful to have a team in place where even if I'm out of town, or you can always call up to the office at RKG and there's going to be somebody here that can help you out. So that's.
So you said you hired a general manager.
I did, yeah, in January.
That was probably a big step for you, right?
It was huge.
So
I decided at the Smash event last December, I'm getting a general manager, and I hired her in January. She officially started in March.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I struggled with this a bit too, because you're like, do you hire the person and then, okay, now I'm going to define all the things that they're going to do, because I've never had a general manager before. Or do you define all the things that a general manager does and then you hire the person for that role? And I know the right answer is, but it's so easy to fall in the trap. Like, well, I've never had a general manager before, so I'm not really sure what all the duties go in that line. So I'll just hire somebody and I'll start throwing tasks at them.
Yeah.
And then,
and unfortunately we set people up for failure when we do that. And when we set other people up for failure as an entrepreneur, we set ourselves up for disappointment, because that very quickly turns into resentment being built up on both ways. Because this person's like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. You just yell things at me, and I can't even create a system. And they feel resentment towards you, and you're turning around going, why did you do it like that? Yeah. And so I really think having those systems and processes. Now, I'm also big, my general manager and I have grown a lot together. We've noticed new processes that the company needs, and we've developed and cultivated those out together. But I definitely had a full-blown job duties, job role. I gave her a starting point when she got here, and to say, these are all the things that goes on at RKG, and these are the specific KPIs that I need from you. And given her when I come to you, I'm going to have a few things. How much money's going out? How much money's coming in? How many sales got done this week? How many build outs were done this week? Where are we at in supplements? Like, these are going to be the key things that I'm going to want to know from you. And these are the people that you can go to get those things. And it took her, about 90 days to really get acclimated into our culture, really feel comfortable and confident in her role here. But now she crushes it. I mean, she totally crushes it. And she holds lines that I wouldn't otherwise hold. So in a general manager position as owners, I think it's also very important that we pick somebody that has strengths that are our weaknesses, and that we have strengths that might be their weaknesses. Kelly and I can balance each other very well, because Kelly is a lot more disciplined than I am. I want to be everybody's friend. I always want to, I want to be able to go around the process and keep everybody happy. But we can't do that for every single person every week. So Kelly really helps me establish boundaries and hold to processes that I otherwise found myself really, and and not that any owner wants to play favorites, but it looks like that sometimes. Like, if this is the process, this is the process. If we let this person and this person and this person get away with it, and then 6 months later something else happened, and it starts to create toxicity in your culture when you have systems and processes that you don't hold people accountable to. Right. And so I specifically looked for that in a general manager role, somebody that I knew that people would respect and like, but that I knew would not fall into that trap of becoming everyone's friend, and remembering that she's here to be my eyes and ears, and she's here to have RKG's best interest at heart, not this individual or that individual or this individual that we end up becoming friends with because we all spend so much time together. Now, I'm bad about spending so much time together that I want to be your best friend, and now I want to break the rules or whatever the case is. So Kelly, that's something that I looked for. I knew that was a weakness that I had. And, I appreciate being able to find somebody that had that personality trait. It was one of those things where I knew that she was the person for the job for that sole reason alone.
How'd you hire? Did you go through Indeed or some kind of recruiting platform?
So I knew her because she was in property management, managing subcontractors for HOAs for 30 years. So RKG was actually a vendor of hers. I always liked us working with Kelly. We had a good business relationship for 3.5 years, 4 years, I guess, before she came over to RKG. She gave me my first commercial, first apartment I got through Kelly. Our first metal roof we got through Kelly. And, we've just always been able to work really, really, really well together. And so I went to her and I offered her a job, and I recruited her out from underneath the property management company that she was working with. And she loved my company so much that, she took the position.
I'm so happy to hear you have that response, because you don't see that much on any of the forums or social media. People are like, can't find good people, and how do you recruit people? Everybody's like, oh, use Indeed, use Job Recruiter. You got all these apps, you got all these things out there, but or you can put an ad in the newspaper, put a sign out in front of your building, we're hiring, which, there's a lot of different tactics. But for the real killers, for the real good players, I've seen more and more people, and we've had success with this too, is you see somebody that's already killing it, they're doing great, but maybe they're not satisfied with their job, or they're underserved, underappreciated, and recruit them. I've had multiple people that I've taken out for lunch 8, 10, 12 times over a course of a year before they decided, okay, they're going to come work with us. And not only does that, you're hiring somebody that's already employed, so they're not unemployed looking for a job.
Yeah, they're not desperate.
They show such loyalty to you later because you sought them out first. You've seen their personality, you've seen their character, and you sought them out, and that makes them feel like, wow, they, Empire wanted me, RKG wanted me, and that breeds right from the beginning of the employment. I think that breeds that loyalty. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think
I always say, Andy, the best people are recruited, not hired. And
right.
There's a difference between recruiting and hiring. You are absolutely right.
For sure. So here's a question for you. Have you ever had a rock star that you hired, or maybe that was potentially a rock star, but you weren't ready to provide good leadership to them and they quit, they got discouraged or something? Or okay, I know sometimes as leaders we're like, we don't want to admit that, like we had a good one come through and we just couldn't, like we didn't have the process in place.
And that, that happens a lot. And I think that it's a good learning experience. And it's not something that personally triggers me to talk about, because I do think that it's a natural part of growing a business. Now, there's a positive thing about coming into a small business that's still a little bit chaotic. And that's, you have more of an ability to become a higher up as the company grows. Hopefully you're able to grow with it. If you're a key part of helping the company develop out, systems and processes that take them somewhere long term. You know, you just already kind of have your in with a growing company, and there's a lot of benefit in that, but we all know it's also super stressful. You do things that are not your job, you catch balls that you didn't drop, you put out fires that you didn't light, and it definitely comes with the territory. Now, in full disclosure, I have been through almost 3 or 4 whole sales teams. I mean, there's like chapters of RKG by now where sales manager in place, sales teams, everything's going. Something gets weird with leadership, you lose half the sales team, you bring in somebody else, culture in this business is so challenging. Don't want to say that it's hard, but it's challenging to maintain. And I've definitely lost at least one person that comes to mind that I'm thinking, I think that him and RKG would have been okay. I think there was some other leadership in place at the time that didn't, those personalities or whatever didn't really line up. I've never really had it to where I felt like anybody left over process failures, I guess, or even production failures that I felt like, damn, I wish that wouldn't have happened, kind of thing. Because if people bring me a problem, I'll fix it. Robbie's the same way. But I do definitely think that we've had misunderstanding situations in the culture that have led to personality differences. And we've lost people that would otherwise be high achievers like that. Even, I'm super guilty. I actually punched myself in the face yesterday. I'm reading a book right now, go figure. And I came into my meeting this morning, and this is just, God, if I could just leave this one thing with people, it'd probably be worth them watching me talk for this whole time, because it just punched me in the face. But the people that are responsible for cancer in your culture are not the people that create it. It's the people that tolerate it.
Yep.
That's me, right? So the time that I lost a good player over cancer in my culture, it wasn't the person's fault that created the cancer. It was my fault for allowing it. And that has been something that I'm going to be personally holding myself accountable for, because I want to be compassionate. I want to be understanding. And sometimes I don't realize how me being understanding and compassionate leads to cancer in the culture, letting people feel like they can slip by on things, seeing how that affects other people in the ecosystem. And so I really think that that's probably the way that most roofing company owners lose the best, especially sales guys, because sales teams get weird. I mean, it's the land of the misfits and all their personalities are wild. And I say that because I'm a sales personality. We're quirky people, to be fair. And you put enough of those people in a room and it can get wild. So, you hear all these coaches say, it doesn't matter if it's your highest performing revenue guy, like if he's the cancer culture, you can't tolerate it. And that's super difficult for us. Sometimes if we've had a guy that's been with us for years, or we have a guy that puts numbers on the board, it's hard to go can him because he's saying things that people don't like, or he's being toxic to the culture. But that's where you lose your best players the fastest, is because they just don't want to be in a low level, low mindset organization. They can't thrive in that kind of space. They don't thrive well in drama, and they just won't tolerate it, and they'll leave.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. So we're coming up on like 45 minutes or something like that. So in closing, I want to ask you, will you be at our RoofCon?
I'm not sure, because I have another event that I'm speaking at that weekend.
Okay.
So I was trying to see if
bigger than RoofCon?
No, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about D2D-Con. What day is RoofCon on?
September 30th through October 2nd.
No, that is the weekend. No, it's not. It's not bigger than RoofCon at all. But it's a smaller engagement that I have already obligated myself to.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be back in time to catch any of RoofCon or not, but I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
And that's the thing with conferences and other things you want to do. You can't do everything. There's a lot of times things are scheduled so close, and you got a business to run, so you can't be running all over the country to do things. But yeah, it'd be awesome if you were there. But yeah, anything before we leave, anything exciting going on with RKG in the next year?
I think that we have a lot of growth happening here at RKG. So I've been personally working on building in middle level management. So some of my senior sales reps that have been here for a year or so are now starting to build out their own individual sales teams within our ecosystem. And I'm super excited to see that finish plan the rest of the way out, because it's about accomplishing their goals and their targets. That a lot of these people told me they wanted to be team leads when they started in this industry a year ago. So to see them put in the legwork to work themselves to that point where they can start to lead others in this industry has been super exciting. That's where my focus is, between that and solar. You know, we did jump into solar, so I'm really going to be just focusing on growth between our San Antonio, Austin market and our DFW market, pushing into solar, further team growth, and you know, the processes will break and we'll fix those along the way as well. But yeah, I think that 2022 is going to be a big year for us, just because we do have, the more leadership you have, the bigger you can build and the more you can scale. And we are getting to that place where we have strong level leaders in the room that I can start building underneath. And so that's really what I'm most excited about in our KG land moving forward for the next 12 months, is just watching that work.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be on the show today.
Thanks, Andy.
It's super awesome to get. We haven't had a lot of ladies on the show, and it's always good to see ladies in the industry. I think there are a ton of ladies that actually run roofing businesses for their guys, but they're behind the scenes. And you know, the guys are out there doing the labor, they're selling the jobs, but you know, the lady's really the one that keeps all the you know, the glue to hold the company together.
So important.
And you know, I just think that they're underappreciated, and so I really like. There's a few ladies that are on the pages that we see, we talk, but you know, I don't think they realize how much they're needed in our industry, and so just really appreciate you coming on board and being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. That's awesome.
And
hopefully people got some things out of it. I think we had some interesting conversations.
Yeah, I'll probably have to have you again on, you know, sometime in the future again as you guys grow. Because I know you're branching more into commercial. This podcast is strictly a commercial podcast, but you know, a lot of times that there's things that cross between residential and commercial in the roofing industry, and just growing your business in general. So yeah, thank you for being on today, and I hope you have a great week.
Thanks, Andy. See you later.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Rocket Roof Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting platforms such as iTunes or Google Play to get the latest episodes as they are launched. For more, please follow us on social media or visit our website at rocketroofshow.com. We look forward to joining you here again soon at the next launch.